Hey, what's up everybody? This is Patrick, and today I'm going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 119, Machida vs. Brunson. So this Saturday, we got the return of Lyoto Machida after 2 years after he got caught taking steroids, facing against Brunson. And we'll be looking at how these two top middleweights match up. First, we got Machida, who has looked amazing in all his middleweight bouts except for his last two. The story of Machida is that he's an amazing fighter on the counter. Coming from a karate background, Machida is one of the best of staying outside of his opponent's reach, backtracking every time they get near him, and when they finally start chasing him, he hits them with an intercepting counter blow. That was mostly all that Machida would do at light heavyweight, back up until his opponents got so frustrated that they started chasing him, which was when he would step in at the same time and counter them with a hard blow. Machida has always had some clever setups for knees and kicks, but it was always the counter punch from southpaw doing most of the damage. When he dropped down the middleweight, he was now coming in as a bigger guy and had more strength to fight off the takedowns. But he also, however, became a more aggressive fighter, which for Machida isn't the best look for him. Machida's punching form has always been sloppy, his hands by the waist and chin hanging in the air, something you find very common in karate practitioners. He mostly got away safely because of the fact that he was backtracking and created such a long distance between him and his opponents. The distance caused his opponents to overstep, trying to close the distance between them and Machida. Since the distance was large, it gave Machida much more time to determine whether or not he wanted to counter his opponents or keep backtracking, which would frustrate them even more. At middleweight, Machida started coming forward a little more, with kicks mostly. When he was kicking his opponents and they were backing up, or they would give him time to kick, he had a lot of success. It was when he came forward punching where he had a lot of trouble, or he wouldn't kick because he was afraid of the takedown. In his last three losses, we have Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, and Yoel Romero. In the Weidman fight, it was the well-measured pressure, patience, and good boxing form that carried Weidman to victory. With Machida always on the back foot, he was having trouble kicking, and Chris Weidman never overcommitted on his punches, so he would never be in trouble from counter punches. He ended up taking Machida 5 rounds and got the decision in the end. Yoel Romero and Luke Rockhold showed that against other southpaws and counter fighters, Machida is not half the fighter that he normally is. In the Rockhold fight, Machida came forward and he got clipped by Luke Rockhold being on the counter. In the Romero fight, which was pretty uneventful, as both fighters barely threw any strikes, both being counter fighters, and Machida not throwing any kicks since he was afraid of the takedowns, which Romero ended up exploding into on the third round and finished Machida with elbows on the ground. Machida also doesn't do well against other southpaws. In the southpaw versus orthodox matchup, Machida would always get his foot on the outside of his opponent's lead foot, getting in his punch faster and exile to his right side, and could have his hands low and chin high as his opponents would have to punch across themselves to get him. It's the classic southpaw strategy. In a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, however, you don't have that side window to sneak out of because you are moving into your opponent's power hand, not their lead hand anymore. John Jones exposed this as he was having trouble with Machida in his orthodox stance, so he switched to southpaw and caught Machida with a lead hook. Machida also finds himself struggling with opponents chasing him down and ending their combos with low kicks. If you're always backing up, your leg is going to be the last thing that leaves range from your opponent, and you'll not be able to check it since you're backing up. This was the trouble that he had with Shogun Rua. Brunson is coming in with a 1-2 record in his last 3 fights, losing to Robert Whittaker in a close decision to Anderson Silva, and bouncing back with a first-round knockout of Dan Kelly. Brunson is also southpaw. Southpaws are always going to have a natural advantage over orthodox fighters, and Brunson has gotten by on his wrestling and southpaw left on their own. All Brunson is mixing up his takedowns with his southpaw left. He's a very left-sided opponent, having barely any attacks from the right side. He does have power in his left hand and knows how to land it, the proof being his 5-fight win streak, with most of them coming by knockout before his fight with Whittaker. Brunson also seems to have the same problem that Machida has, bad boxing form, leaving his chin high, coming forward, and hands nowhere to protect them. In most cases, because he is southpaw, when he fights orthodox fighters, just using a classical step outside the opponent's lead foot can avert most of the damage he takes, but most of their struggles come against people who can counter-strike or stuff his takedowns. He was winning the Yoel Romero fight until he got countered with his chin well in front of his face, and he lost to Whittaker in the same way. Most wrestlers in MMA can get through almost all competition from just the fear of their takedowns and having a good understanding how to land their rear hand, but struggle with the truly elite in the game. This is the mold I feel Derek fits into. So how did they match up? Well, the biggest question is how well Machida's cardio is going to hold up after a 2-year layoff. His style is pretty cardio intensive, so she's always backing away and always making sure to move. He's no stranger to 5-rounders, but a 5-round fight after such a long layoff payoff is a lot to ask for anyone. Mashida's biggest weakness are always going to be the strong kickers, counter fighters, other southpaws, and strong wrestlers. Brunson fits the mold of two of these factors, the southpaw and the strong wrestler. It'll be interesting to see how this fight comes out. On the one hand, both of these fighters are very left-handed, Machida preferring southpaw for his orthodox engagements, since it opens up his left straight, left knees, and left kicks to the open side. Brunson also prefers these matchups as it opens up the southpaw left for him. Brunson is also a strong wrestler, which is another thing that Machida doesn't like. Brunson has never been a good ring cutter, however, something that is essential to fighting a fighter who is always moving around the cage like Machida, since most of Machida's takedown defense is made up of that long distance that his opponents need to cover to get to his hips, giving him extra time to get ready to defend the takedown. The southpaw left hand is going to be harder for both fighters to land in this fight because they're both fighting southpaw, so there's more hands and distance obstructing the rear hands for both of them. One thing to know is that in the Robert Whittaker fight, Derek Brunson took his bad habit of his chin being high, hands low, and shooting from too far for takedowns and went to the extreme. In my eyes, if Machida had been fighting Derek instead of Robert that day, he would have had an easy field day for Machida. So in summary, it'll be the question of who's going to be able to land the rear hand more easily, as both don't have jabs to speak about. Whether Derek Brunson is going to score any takedowns, or because of his bad tendency, is he going to get clocked with counters? The biggest question for Machida is how is his gas tank going to hold up, and if he's going to feel comfortable fighting another southpaw again, and whether he can do his usual backtrack and counter. So that's my thoughts on the main event this week. I'll be back on Sunday with a post-fight breakdown. Like the video if you did, comment down below your thoughts on this fight, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks.